Dear students, welcome to a presentation regarding the process of writing your final report for FENG 497-498 at the Faculty of Engineering of the Izmir University of Economics. So in the next hour, I want to kind of walk you through the process of putting together this report and some procedures that I hope will be useful to you, not just to fulfill the bare minimum requirements to do so, but to actually put a little bit of creativity and ingenuity into the process. And understandably, this is probably the first time for some of you to put together a significant paper containing important technical results, important to you, important to anybody who's going to read it, certainly testing you in a way that is more complete from the standpoint of being able to report about your work. So, as you will understand, this is a process that requires time. And as anybody will tell you who writes a lot, as I do, the key issue is to fight or resist procrastination. It is okay, some say, to factor in the procrastination, and that's true. In other words, allow yourselves knowing that you will procrastinate. However, at the end of the day, you gotta sit down and do this. And I can promise you that once you get going, even creating the skeleton of the document, you will feel the momentum build up and you will proceed forward. So this is an issue of sitting down. I cannot stress enough how important it is to sit down. I'm sharing with you these things because you may think that these only apply to you students, but in reality they apply to everybody who writes. And of course, faculty members write a lot, but I think that there are many professions in which people write a lot. And so you need to sit down and do that. And you need to think how you're going to structure the document, how you're going to say it, how you're going to prepare your figures, your tables, your references. This is a standard process that is not just to torture students in the FENG 497, 498 classes, but it is about reporting to others the work that you have done. Because if you don't do that, in the end, you haven't done it. It's not just a matter of getting the grade. It's a matter of the same thing happening at work. And if you are a researcher, maybe a PhD student, master's student, you just need to report what you've done. So if we look here at the official template, if you want, of what needs to happen with this particular document that you will be preparing, the structure, the different sections that are available that you need to fill out. You will see that we need to have a conversation about a title page, a table of contents, an abstract, an introduction, literature review, methodology, results and discussion, conclusion, references, and appendix. In the process of discussing all these things, I will tell you, various other things that matter, I think, that may be useful to you. And I will kind of navigate you through some of the things that I have written, because, so that you understand a little bit how I came to understand these things in my own way. I hope that this will be useful. This is the document I'm talking about, and this is, of course, available at the website of the class. And I invite you to become familiar with that particular document. So let's go a little bit through this and see um, what it means to have a title page. So you may think that this is kind of trivial, but I would like to stress that every document that we prepare, or most of them, I would say, need to comply with some requirements. Okay, so if you go to papers written by me, not because I write so much as I do, because it seems like I'm writing all the time, but simply because these are the things I've written, I'm familiar with these, that's what I'm going to talk about, you will see that they are not all the same. Okay, so this is a paper written for the physical review letters, and if you compare that to a paper written for the physics teacher, you will see a drastic difference. Now, this is me a million years ago. And so if you look at the title page, this is the title page of this paper, and you compare it with this title page, you will see the drastic difference, right? So what's going on? Well, what's going on is that if you want to publish stuff, you must comply with the requirements imposed on you by the editor. And so the editor in this case is, if you want, the coordinator of the class, not me. And we all need to comply with the requirements. This is a faculty requirement. So the title page of this particular document includes the logo of the university and, of course, a title. So the question that you need to address here for yourselves is, what will the title of your document be? And this is something that maybe your instructors have provided to you, and that is fine. But I would like you to give it some thought. It is perhaps possible to discuss with your supervisor whether that title, captures what you want to do, what you have done. I'm not talking about the subject. I'm talking about the presentation in terms of the words in the title. Titles, can be catchy, can be boring, can be fascinating, attractive, or a put down. So think about what you want to think in, as far as your title is concerned, and then you will need to write that up. So just for you to understand a little bit better, obviously we do have these templates, in many different places, and so if I wanted to start writing something, I can definitely come up with a possible presentation for a research or let's call it a research paper, a final project with a particular template. So this one, for instance, is one that I use for general education students. And as you can see, it's kind of structured similarly to the one we were looking at before. Okay, so this is, again, there is a title here that you can possibly write, a subtitle if you wish, etc., etc. So these things are not negotiable, really. Everybody who's writing a paper needs to have a title page. Now, I'm saying this, you may think I'm talking about too much on this subject, but you have no idea how many students have submitted papers to me over time without their name. This it strikes me dumbfounded when this happens, or they misspell their name. Okay, so spend some time on the title page, because that's the first thing that people are going to see. We'll go back to this template and all the other papers that the type of papers I have written, so that you kind of understand how all these pieces are integrated together. So with that in mind, and returning to the title page slide, let's discuss a little bit the components that follow. So if I go back to the template that we were analyzing before, As you can see here, we have a title page, then there is a table of contents. I will discuss that very little because I think anybody knows what a table of content is. But what I would like to say is that the first 4 elements in this list, the title page, the table of contents, the abstract, and the introduction, I will of course discuss them at some length, but they are typically written later. A good place to start, in my opinion, I'm not telling you how to do your research, okay? For that, you need to speak to your supervisors, but I'm telling you how to write in the assumption that you have written, have researched what you had to research, and you are now in the process simply of reporting what you have concluded. Then I would definitely say that the abstract is probably going to be the last thing you write, and the table of contents the very last thing you write. Now, the introduction, I wouldn't mind if you wanted to write a paragraph or two about the introduction, but the introduction, some people will tell you, is the hardest part of the entire project. That requires, in my opinion, a deep understanding of the background literature and how you contribute to it. So, yeah, you need to devote time to the introduction, but you will need time to finalize it. So that'll be a different kind of project, and it's really a place in which you need to talk a lot, and there is very little math or figures or diagrams or data. It's a place of reflection, and that's the reason that some people find it harder to write. Now, personally, I like the introduction better than anything else in practice because I love to create the setting for what I am going to talk about. So I'm going to take you first to references, the very end, and literature review. Okay, so we are, I think, around here. Let me quiet this down. Here we go. Okay, references. Okay, we need to discuss that because we need references for our literature review. Okay, we cannot review the literature if we don't have any references. So that is, in my opinion, the place where the rubber meets the road for a student. It is amazing to me how many people, even professionals, write on a subject without a thorough understanding of the literature in that field. Now, in your case, obviously, you have limited time to devote to this literature research, but you need to understand that there are papers, review papers, entirely devoted simply to reviewing everything that's been written on a particular subject. So it is absolutely critical that you review your literature. And that is obviously also going to feed back into the um, into your work to write an introduction. So everything is helpful in that way. So as you can see here, more or less everything that I ever write starts with an introduction. The way in which that happens may very well be different. It may matter in different ways. But if you look at a paper that is experimental, you may find yourself. Let's see. Here we go. You may find that this has a discussion of the general field and the motivation for that paper. Okay, so yeah, why are we doing it is something that we are led to by the literature review. Okay, so it's important for you to understand that everything that we do starts in a way at the end. So if you write a paper that is on the theoretical side, then you're gonna have to review the subjects that have led people to that mathematical problem. Okay, so there is always an introduction. The introduction, however, is fed in by the references that are at the end. And these references here shown in a paper that I wrote for the Physical Review B, as you can see, there may be many. In this case, there were 151 references. So let's look a little bit at this to start, okay? And as you probably have noticed, I'm using a program that is not obviously required by the university for you to organize your references, but I want you to know what I'm using. This is called Mendeley. The reason that I like personally Mendeley is not because I want to make my life complicated, because I want to make it easier. So as you can see here on this side of the screen, you're going to have the title of the paper that you're reading, author, the journal, year, volume, pages, personal tags, citation key, and the website where you can find it and stuff like that. So I do all this because it allows me to organize myself. And then when I go read this paper, which is what we're talking about now, I can use, this, the ability to underline, you can take notes, etc., etc. Now, I'm not saying that you need to have Mendeley to do this. You can do this however you want. For instance, you can open an Acrobat reader and do the same. So you need to find a way to extract all this information that I'm just showing to you now from what you're reading. And so this means that you need to become familiar with the title, the journal, obviously the author, and notice that every journal is identifiable from the year of publication, volume, issue, page number. In this day and age, there is a DOI. That is, in this case, it's written down here. Okay, this is a universal number for the identification of a document. And so we know what everything is that we are citing in the paper in question. Okay, so it's important that you become familiar with these particular items that identify a paper. So if you look at the references of this particular one, this is something that I want you to understand very clearly. As you can see here, I'm going to zoom in for you. As you can see here, we have, I don't know, for instance, for this one, reference number 1, okay, I'm underlining it for you. Okay, Julianne Schwinger, this is a Nobel Prize winner in physics. Okay, and there are Derrad and Milton writing in the Annals of Physics of the city of New York. That's just the name of the journal. Volume 115 in boldface, page number 1 in 1978. Okay, now this is how you do that there. That's how you write the references in this particular journal. But it doesn't mean that you do the same in every journal. So I want you to appreciate the fact that references are written sometimes in very different ways than that. Okay, so you need to understand that this is called the formatting of your references. So if you go look at, I don't know, the Journal of Physics A, for instance, that is written by a different society, and you compare how the Journal of Physics A is citing, okay, look at the complete difference here of that method. As you can see, the Journal of Physics A will have again the authors, but you see now the first name comes second, and the year of the journal comes first. Then the name of the journal is italicized, and now, of course, this information, the volume and the page number, are not separated by commas. And now in the more modern journals, of course, they are bold-faced because you can technically click on this and it will take you to the paper itself on the internet. I'm saying this so that you understand that you need to be careful in the way that you prepare your references in order to convey a feeling of professionalism. There is nothing that puts me off more than badly written references. So decide which formatting you want to use. Typically, when I have the students do this, I will probably have them do this with the Elsevier bibliography style, but I frankly don't care. They can do it in any way they want. so long as it's consistent and done in a way that is professionally orderly. So it's very important that you familiarize yourself with the way that the references will be presented, and of course that then that feeds into the content. I would like you to notice that some journals write the title of the paper in the references, and many do not. Okay, that, and sometimes, of course, the book title is always there, but in the case of articles, that may not be the case. Something else to discuss. This is something that your supervisor can provide guidance about: the detailed style of reference citation. It's very important. One other issue: typically in science STEM writing, references are provided in the order in which they appear. So they are not written as by alphabetical order or by the year in which they were written. They are instead provided in the order in which they appear in the paper itself. So this, of course, leads you to the next fun question, which is how you're going to number them in the paper. So as you are writing your paper, right? So if I take you back here to where I was, which is, okay, let me go back to an example of something that looks like a student paper. So if I go back here and okay, and I look at this and, and I say, okay, now I'm writing this paper. Okay, and I say, okay, more text. Okay, so, and, you know, Archimedes of Syracuse, okay, did something. Okay, and we need to open parenthesis, and that is a reference to a book that Archimedes of Syracuse may have written. Now, if that book reappears in your paper, in your report, then that will remain referenced as number one. In other words, in the reference list, if this book appears again 20 pages later, you're still going to call it number one. So what does this mean? It means that as you are writing your report, you need to keep track of what number you have assigned to every reference as it appears. Now, I want to tell you, not because this is a requirement, but simply because I have a provocative mind, that one of the reasons that I love Mendeley and other reference managers like that, Zotero is another one like that, there are others, is that they number the paper for you automatically. My students typically will use LaTeX, not Word. LaTeX does it automatically, and Mendeley sets it up for you in a way that this enumeration is done automatically. However, in this particular recording, I'm not going to discuss the details of how to do that. I do that with my students separately, and I may post a different video with those details. I just want you to understand that when you are providing your references, and that book becomes, or article becomes numbered as 1 or 53, it remains referred to as 53. So if it reappears later, you still need to call it to the number with which you numbered it the first time. Okay, so this, I think, the time that I have spent on references should probably by itself indicate to you that they really matter to me. The references are truly an important sign of professionalism. Albert Einstein had references. So do you. There is no excuse, and papers, in my opinion, should be trashed when references are not appropriate. There is another reason for proper referencing that your instructors will talk about, you're going to hear me talk about, everybody talks about this because it's a big deal, and that is the horrible problem of plagiarism in the world. Plagiarism, of course, is a breach of intellectual property, People, unfortunately, will get out there and find something catchy or important and simply copy and paste into a paper. This is terrible. It happens also at the professional level. There are big efforts in the world to detect it. Safe Assign is the way at our university that we detect plagiarism by means of software. But there are others. There is Authenticate that is used by professionals. So editors are always very careful about this, and I am personally very careful about this. How do you vaccinate yourself against the danger of being accused of plagiarism? The way that you do that is by putting double quotes around a sentence or a short paragraph that you absolutely want to cite. And then at the end of that, you're going to do exactly what I've done here. So you're going to put a number, okay? So that you can reference that in a way that, so Archimedes of Syracuse said, and let's see if I can do this quickly. So he said, Eureka, okay? You may know the story. Okay, so now I put it in double quotes. This is not me saying the words. So you could, because somebody could have said, I don't know, sometime when I discover something. Oops, I switched to boldface here. So when I discover something, oops, it's decided to go boldface. Something I feel like saying Eureka. Okay, but you see, that's not really fair to Archimedes because he's the one that said it. So we're gonna still say Eureka because I feel like saying Eureka, but we're gonna put it in double quotes and we're gonna put a reference here. Now I am vaccinated. Nobody can say that I didn't reveal to you that Archimedes said Eureka, because here at the number 1, I'm gonna have a reference to that. Okay, so I cannot stress how important it is that your references be complete, not only because it provides a feeling that you are well read on the subject, but also because if you ever need to use any information, including the words of a researcher or the conclusions of a researcher, who has written an important reference, now you can, because you can reference to that. References are the key to letting me know that you read on the subject and that you recognize the contribution of those who came before you. Okay, enough said on that. So now let's say that you got your references, and how many will depend on what your supervisor wants from you. And as you will remember, we need references for what reason? Because as you will know, we need to use them to write our literature review. Okay, so we need to now analyze them. So that would be our, let's see if I can do this right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm gonna go to that particular item and discuss that now. So we'll go to, oops, this is not that. Here we go. Literature review. All right. So how are we gonna get ourselves organized for doing this? Okay. Well, I gotta tell you, I don't know of any other way to do that but to get into the stuff that people have written and reading it. And so the question is simply, how are you going to get yourself organized so that you can do this? And there is no way. I mean, I think that technology helps us in the sense that we can now, as I say, highlight here text, and we can note wherever we want. Okay, this is all good. And certainly, if you do that in a way that is proficient, uh, you are basically writing your literature review. So I am here again using Mendeley as a template of my way of thinking, but there are spaces for notes and annotations, and there are these sticky notes. All the stuff that you write about what this particular author has done becomes the skeleton, if you want, of your literature review. What has the author done that matters to your own study? So this means, how do we read a science paper? That's the subject of writing a literature review. Okay, so well, the place to start, and that matters because you will need to write one of these, is of course the abstract. Okay, the abstract, if well written, it's always a problem to write a good abstract, is a very condensed expression of the conclusions of that author in that particular field. So some abstracts are longer than others. I have written abstracts that are 2 or 3 lines, and others that are longer. So this is a bit on the longer side. It really depends on you. There isn't. I mean, there are some that are pretty long, and typically many are short. So this is the very first paper that I published. You see, kind of a short length, I would say. This was an astrophysics paper. So I would say that if you start from here for your literature review, this is a good place to go. Other places where you will find some good information are in the introduction of the paper itself, and of course in the conclusions, because the conclusions, as we will talk about today, are a great treasure trove of information, because supposedly the author now tells you what he or she has done in that particular study. So this is the place to go. I don't want to tell you to not even look in the body of the paper, okay, because that matters. I would go so far as to say that you haven't done literature review until you know the anatomy of everything that other people have done. But definitely a place to start, I would say, the abstract, the introduction, and the conclusions of the papers that you're writing. Okay, so there are. I always am thinking how I am going to organize my thoughts on the subject of what I have read. I mean, I at some point I need to be able to repeat to people what these other authors have written, and so I'm trying to show to you here that definitely there is a process of study, of annotation, which can be done the old-fashioned way, or you can do it via software. You can write it on notes in Acrobat, for instance, or you can write a small file that is next to in the same folder. You can organize them as Notepad. There are also pieces of software that kind of help you take notes, if you want to call it that, so that you can organize your thinking, so that you can assign, if you want, a logical place to all the study that you have done, so that you can show to yourself that you kind of understand where everything has gone in the process. Okay, so when I go here to the report template, the question here becomes, how have you understood the role that every author has played in the paper that you have that you are reporting about? Okay, So it's important for you to understand that there are ways to um, explain the structure of the ideas of people, and so I'm just trying to kind of walk around the fact that uh, sometimes it's not so easy to add a a paragraph about what other people have done as it is possible instead to do about what you're doing. But you will need to find a way to organize all this thinking. And I would like to just throw some ideas here that might be useful. And as you know, I am very big on free open source software. So I find that sometimes what may be useful is to analyze on just sketching what you may find useful in creating a diagram before you even write into a paper. Let's put it this way. That's I'm kind of struggling to tell you, because what I'm trying to do here is to provide you an imagery of what you could do. So just at the barest possible level, what you may want to do is to go to your literature and uh, and say, okay, we have uh, author one, this particular author one, he has contributed you know, a new experiment, you know, and this experiment was famous. Why? Because the experiment had, I don't know, lower noise, to give you an idea. Okay, so you write it here, and then what happened after this author wrote that was that uh, uh, author number two uh, cited this particular author, so they're connected like that. And author number two, implemented a statistical analysis that was more impressive, So it matters for that reason. Okay. Okay, this is good. So, but it's pretty chaotic right now. The question is, what is your niche in all this? Okay, you could say, well, what we're going to do here will be to repeat this experiment. So we're going to repeat uh, with simpler instrumentation. We want to repeat this experiment and see if we can achieve the same results with a better statistical analysis, although the instrumentation is bad. Now, even I have a hard time reading what I've written here, okay? But it starts like this, okay? It's pretty chaotic because it's a creative process, okay? So after you have done this, you may want to improve on it, and you may say, okay, well, now, fine, we have this messy situation that we have written, but now we can go to uh, a better scheme for these things. Okay, you can say, well, let's start writing like good people that are, So I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna write author one, and I'm gonna organize a box now. Okay, and I'm gonna say author two. Okay, I remember that's what they have done. Okay, and then we're gonna be here. That's our new contribution, is that. So you see, it's now becoming a little bit better understood what they have done. So I'm trying to say this particular strategy to think about ideas graphically is called maps. So you may wanna, I'm giving you the suggestion that when you are writing your literature review, a map may be useful to you. There is also software for maps, um, and it, it depends on what you want from this map. But I would say that probably it depends on what kind of map, uh, but there are some that are more famous than others. Uh, Out of those that are in the realm of um, the free open source software, the ones that I personally find out the most are, um, let me see if I can find a different color, so like that. I find Freeplane is famous. There is a CMAP, okay? So these are organized in a way that you can actually kind of, you can make bubbles and then you can stretch them on the screen. And they will provide, you can even output that to a PDF or a PostScript file. So I'm giving an idea here about the fact that literature review may actually become a figure in your paper. It doesn't have to only be a boring thing that you simply tell me over and over what these authors have done. I mean, you need to do that also. You need to also tell me what they've done, but it may be interesting for me to hear how you have organized that thought in a coherent way. Okay, so here I'm showing you uh, a program that is very famous, Illustrator. This is not free. The competitor, if you want, of Illustrator in the free open source world is probably Inkscape. Okay, but this program here would allow you to do something like what I have told you now, that you can create a new file here, and if you want, you can go make a block, and and inside of that block, you can do all the things that I told you before. You can write, okay, author one, and maybe you can put a note down here about what author one has done. What did we say? It was, a new experiment or something like that. I think that's what I said. And then you can create another box, nearby for author two, and let's see, author two, and then we're gonna be here with that, and so we're gonna have author two. So you see here, you're organizing thoughts in um, a way that is more graphical. And then if you want, you can put arrows to connect them in some kind of stylish way that you like, and that's entirely up to you to do something like that. And now, right now, I'm kind of doing all this in black and white, but you can of course do this in color if you prefer. That's entirely up to you. So this is just an idea about when I think about literature review, I am actually thinking like this. I'm thinking in a graphical way in my head. And then those paragraphs that you write are actually a representation, a description of this. And I'm thinking that perhaps if you write these, if you analyze them in this way, then a picture may be a way for you to then tell us the story of the literature review that you have done. So this is on that issue of literature review that is very important. And again, be careful to reference it correctly and to provide an up-to-date view of what other people have done. Okay, so the literature review sets us up, by the way, for what you want to do, how you want to do things in a different way. Okay, because what is your contribution going to be if people had done, this and that? What are you going to do? That's the question. Okay, so that's the reason that following the literature review, we have, let me see here, where are we? So we have methodology. Okay, so obviously in our faculty, and in the university, people do final reports about all kinds of things. I'm not even going to attempt to say what you should do with methodology. Your supervisor will direct you on that issue. However, I want to remind you that the scientific method is very specific about what methodology description is required. And it is impossible for me to imagine that anybody would do any paper, any scientific reporting, writing a paper about something that anybody has done, whether they've done it or somebody else has done it, without a complete description of the way that you're going to do it. So that if I wanted to buy all the parts and go do that again, I would be able to do that exactly like that and repeat what you have done and obtain the same data. So here I'm trying to concentrate on experimental stuff that I've done so that maybe this is a little more visible to you, but this is a place where you may see photographs and figures of the process. Again, diagrams that show procedures are very important here to delineate your methodology and also how it differs from what other people have done. As you can see, we are often talking about how to prepare pictures or photographs or diagrams. So I've shown you already Illustrator before. I cannot stress enough how important it is for you to have attention to the figures that you will prepare. I am very discouraged by the fact that I see not only students but professionals sometimes cheerfully go to the internet to download things, and you cut and paste and put it there without even acknowledging it. But really, if this is your work, you need to take the time. If it is experimental, you come to the lab and you take photography of your own setup with a camera. If you only have a phone, that's fine. But you need to work on explaining what you did. Take the time to do that. If it is theoretical work or simulation work, and now we have a pandemic, so many projects are like that, you still can do screenshots and process them well. Illustrator or Inkscape, if you want to use a free open source software, which is very good, doesn't matter, are a way to go. I wanted to, of course, tell you that if you take pictures of things, then you need to make them visible. So you need to spend some time wondering, is what I'm looking at something that is presentable in the way that if I, just to give you an idea now of, I'm going to make this picture look awful. So if I do this, unless I'm trying very hard to show a specific formation here on the Terminator, where the shadow of the moon ends, I would need to justify very hard a photograph in a paper that looks like this. It's possible that there may be a good reason for that, but it's also possible that you may want to consider something like this. And then the other issue that you want to think about is pixelation when you're doing photography for to support your explanation. You can, whereas diagrams, as I will explain shortly, can be vector formats and therefore they will basically not pixelate, a photograph like this is bound to pixelate on some scale. So if you zoom into this, at some point you're gonna create pixels. So be careful with that, and try to think on what scale you want this thing to be seen, so that it's clear that you are either showing this object at the largest scale that you can for reasons that have to do with the accuracy, or maybe you want to show a limitation. Uh, but if you just show a pixelated laboratory, I just don't know why you would do something like that. Okay. And this another thing I want to say is that I often see pictures in student reports in which the aspect ratio of the picture is not correct. So the photo was correctly taken, but for some reason that I find especially upsetting, considering that I often do astronomical work, if you stretch it in a direction, but not in the other, you're not magnifying it. You are changing the shape of the object. Okay, so if I remove this here and I'm trying to unlock it, let's see, how do I do that? It's not wanting to be unlocked for whatever reason. So I could take this picture and stretch it along the x-axis, but not along the y-axis. Something it's not letting me do that right. Oh, here we go. Constraint proportions. Here we go. So now if I say, okay, let's do 80 on this side, I'm gonna get a moon that looks like this. You will be surprised how many people show up with reports that look like that. It means nothing to me unless you had a reason to show me something like this. Okay. Now, a step back here to the concept of line diagrams. So that would be again into the world of Illustrator. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of diagrams because you need to show your data. This is a natural point for everybody to have to show what they have done. So I am here just showing you, GNU-plot, that is one of the free open source solutions that the students that I teach use. There are others, but the bottom line is that this software can, produce a diagram like this. I mean, this is obviously very large errors. Okay, there is no question. So here, what I have done has been to make it abnormally large. But the question that what I want you to reflect on is that that there is no pixelation here. So how was this done? Why do we have no pixelation? We have no pixelation here because I have produced this diagram. I told GNU-plot to do this in a vector format. So vector formats are formats in which you have basically no pixelation, because the computer manages the resolution in a way that it scales up to the zoom level that you have for that particular picture. So I could take this and I could make it bigger and bigger and bigger, and it would still be not pixelated. Okay, so remember, when you produce diagrams, do not produce them in BMP or JPEG. BMP and JPEG may be appropriate formats to show photographs. Like a picture of the moon is going to be naturally pixelated at some level because the camera that took it, the CCD camera, had physical pixels. But there is no reason to look at an XY diagram that is pixelated. I find that it greatly detracts from the information that you would like to convey. Here in Illustrator, I had kind of saved that same diagram, then I overwrote it. Let me go back to show to you what I mean here. So I'm going to put this away, okay, and go back to this. This is the same diagram created by GNU-plot. Why did I import it into Illustrator? Well, I mean, GNU-plot can be told to do many things, so you can do that. But you could also, if you don't like these numbers, you can go change them into another program. Okay, if that's done in PDF or EPS, which is encapsulated PostScript, you can get in here and okay, well, you can say I want to take all these now, and I don't want it in Tahoma. I want to have them in Times New Roman font, and I want to have it, well, regular is probably okay, but I want to have it bigger, something like this. Oops, I've only changed those. So, okay, so let me go back here and do it to all the others. So like that, okay. And now hopefully this is gonna work for all of them. So I'm gonna have Times New Roman, and I can't remember, what was it, 24 maybe? Yeah, there we go. Now obviously something went wrong here in the sense that now these numbers are touching the XY axis. Okay, so you're gonna get into here and move them, okay, and like this. So you're gonna put them here now. So you can do all this, and I think that there is a lot of good stuff that can be done. Okay, as you can see, this particular diagram doesn't have a legend. So if you don't want to spend time learning how to do legends with GNU plot, you can add the legend here. Well, I will say that you must. It's not that you can. Okay. So if this was perhaps a temperature, in kelvins, then it needs to be put in here. And so you're gonna go into there, and then you're gonna transform this. You're gonna rotate. Oops. You're gonna rotate it. Rotate. There we go. Let's say 90, obviously, and then we're gonna go like that. And now that we're here, we're gonna move it in position. So this is an idea. Okay. You need to spend some time with your art. It is called, so that it conveys the information that you want to convey. This is not just beauty, but it is the effectiveness of communication. Now I'm zooming into these error bars. Can you see that there is no pixelation? But when we were doing this with the moon before, it was pixelating. Okay, so this is the reason for using vector formats. Vector formats typically for you will be EPS, which is encapsulated PostScript, or PDF. And Illustrator does both, and as do all the other programs that handle vector formats. Do not save your diagrams in anything but that. The only reason to do otherwise, if you are preparing a diagram for the internet, you're preparing a website, then there are other formats, maybe PNG or whatever that you can use. Okay, so this is as far as that, and I wanted to say that in addition, this issue of the intersection between statistical analysis or data analysis and illustration is something that people spend a lot of time on, because it really matters to the impression that people make in the final product. Okay, so do not neglect it. I wanted to just show you another product. This is an expensive one, but you may have that in your lab. This is Origin. Origin is a splendid program that not that GNU plot isn't, but this is ready-made for the stuff that I'm talking about. It does diagrams of all kinds, including 3D, and it also integrates all that with a very superb spreadsheet. Obviously, when you produce an experiment, you are going to have a spreadsheet that you will produce data. Okay, so it's always important for you to know that if you are representing your data in a way that is appropriate. Anyway, inside of Origin, there is that capability as well. GNU plot is extremely versatile. I'm not saying, I absolutely use it all the time, but I want you to understand that there are other programs than Excel for graphing, and I hardly ever use that for scientific reasons. Okay, so we are now, if we refer back, we are now basically doing what? We've done an experiment or calculations if it is a theoretical paper. I'm going to put this back up here, and I'm going to turn this off. So here are our friends. Methodology, that's how this came up. Now, in this particular diagram, outline of a typical report, let me see if literature review, no, so This is the one I wanted. So results and discussion. Okay, so uh, as you have seen, the template, the official FENG 497 template states that, and the instructions state that, especially for 497, you may not have results. I mean, it just depends on how far you went. I personally would encourage you to try, though. Look at what you do have, bare as it might be, and try to have a section about results and discussion. Even if your result is that the following semester you need to continue to do this, I think it's really worth drawing some conclusions. Okay, try something, try to get there. I think it really matters, and this is a place where you can say, what just happened to us when we were doing this experiment or this calculation or this simulation. More on the language here in a minute. Conclusion, everybody needs to have that, I suppose. So if everything else fails, you're going to have conclusions. I put that in the plural, hoping that it's going to be more than one conclusion. So at this point, we are kind of navigating towards having to write in English. And this is, I know, I admire all the students at the Izmir University of Economics who don't have English as a first language. And for me, being a foreigner in your country, I know how hard it is for me. So definitely, I appreciate how hard it is for you to do it. But I would like to conclude this long session on the very different things that need to happen for you to put together a report this year, a final project. Talking about writing, something that I very much treasure, it's very much part of my life. And I would like to tell you that there is nothing that scares me more personally than finding myself it is disconcerting for me to find myself in this situation here. This is a white page. Okay, it's terrible to be in this position. I mean, and if you go to YouTube and look for channels about writers, I listen to these, they will tell you it is the scariest time that you can possibly have. So how do you get going? Because I eventually we provide you with some kind of a template, which is the document that that this particular outline came from. The outline that I've drawn from the internet was the outline that contained this as an introduction, basically, and then there are some descriptions inside about what you need to do. I suppose that we try to do everything that we can do, but at some point you're going to find yourself in front of this. And what I want to tell you with all my heart is, do not procrastinate. Just get going. Start writing. It can be very late at night. For instance, I write very well when it's dark outside, either when it's very late at night or very early in the morning. I like. Music helps. Soothing music helps. And then you need to get all these notes that you've taken. Maybe in Mendeley you wrote all these notes on other people's papers, and that can be a place to start. You need to just create a space in your mind in silence where you can start to compose. And I know that this may be difficult also because of the language, obviously, but I cannot stress enough how important it is to just start. Okay, So I published another paper this past month and another one the month before, and I hope I publish another paper the month coming. Believe me, it's never easy. When I look at these, I'm speaking to you from the bottom of my heart. It is hard for me to remember how I was able to come up with this stuff when I wrote it. Because at the time that I wrote it, I was struggling and fighting. And anybody who's a friend of mine will tell you that when I'm writing something, I become upset sometimes. It is an effort. So please start putting words to the paper. Now we don't use paper now at the moment anymore. At this point we are using we put ourselves in front of a word processor. But start writing something. We did an experiment, and it can be very ugly. Okay, and obviously English has its own formality about it. So yeah, they will tell you, do not write "we did an experiment." That is not very good scientific English. I agree. So okay, an experiment was carried out. Okay, an experiment was carried out. Fine. Hey, look at it though. Now we are writing. The paper is no longer white. Now there is black on it. That's good. Okay. In which, okay, now we keep going. Don't stop. Okay, don't stop. And okay, oh, I misspelled. Fine, keep going. Don't stop. Whatever it is, keep going. Fill that page with trash if you have to. Okay, but do something. Fight to produce the words. Okay. Now, there are strategies to survive this terrible process. And one of the strategies is to imagine that you are somehow able to break down the process into pieces. Okay, so if I am writing, I'm gonna say, okay, first of all, let's get rid of all this junk here. So oops, sorry, here we go. So I'm writing, okay, and if you can imagine that white page that we were looking at before just a moment ago, and imagine that paper is structured in blocks. Take it in pieces. Write this block, then write this block, then write this block, and actually zoom into this place. You may want to say, okay, you may want to write a note for yourself here. Okay, here I am talking about something. I'm talking about our motivation, and I'm writing very badly on purpose here because it doesn't have to be pretty. Okay, and then down here, I am saying, okay, well then down in this second block, our improvement. Okay, so now I don't even print anymore. You see, I'm doing everything online. Okay, and I don't care. At the time that I'm writing about improvement here, over here, I am not looking at the other blocks. So what I'm trying to tell you is, if you get into the into the template and write in pieces, okay, then you can probably survive better. Even the idea of writing the introduction, all the introduction in one gulp, may be too much to take. Now, I repeat that plagiarism is a horrible thing, but people are driven to plagiarism for some, in some reasons it's just plain evil. In other cases, it's just that the time ran out and people try to do it in a hurry. So I want to go back to what I told you at the beginning. Do not procrastinate. The time to start writing your final project is today. You can do something about writing the final project now. Take your time. As regards the language, of course, everybody is understanding of the fact that the language may not be perfect. I want to tell you that there is help on the matter. You can indeed go online and get help in a way that doesn't violate anything. So if you want to know, okay, if I exploited a particular study and I want to have a synonym, I can go here and I can find the synonyms of exploitation. Okay, there is also some help available online. I personally have no problem if people check out their English with Grammarly. I do not use Grammarly for myself, but I don't find it impure if people do. So you can go here and say, our efforts was successful, and when you put that into Grammarly, it'll say check your text, and it's proofreading, and you see, mistake. Why? Because our efforts were, not was. So you may want to use these. Grammarly, by the way, also has a paid version. I'm not suggesting that you pay money. I'm suggesting that you avail yourself of everything that you can online to polish your English, if that's what you wish to do. This is not plagiarism. This is fine. Everybody, I mean, there are professional writers that use these tools. Okay, so this is not a problem. But obviously, it needs to be done having the time to do it. So I would like to conclude by saying that, I found recently my very first paper on astrophysics. As you can see, dated by hand in April 1986. That is the 20th century. It's far away. Written with an ugly typewriter. And when I think that nowadays we can write mathematics in ways that are pretty incredible, given the fact that I am already running over an hour and 15 minutes, I have not spent too much time on the issue of how you can format your mathematical equations. I just want to tell you that when I think about the fact that at the time that I was writing these things, I was writing mathematics by transferring characters that you would buy at the store by means of plastic sheets. You would press on them and write equations. But nowadays, even in Word, we have math editors. There is one called Math Type. You can find again that online, okay? And you can write equations by means of this, okay? So you can write all kinds of mathematical symbols here. Please spend some time doing beautiful mathematics. I want to tell you that, especially for the students who suffer with me through LaTeX, there are ways to write equations in LaTeX, and I am not going to spend time on that now, but there is a toggle here that allows you to do that, and so that you can write things in a way that is pleasing. Okay, that I think that is very important in our business. to be able to communicate equations in a way that matters, that impress people, even aesthetically speaking, okay? And so it's possible to get in there and polish your manuscript to the point that it is, in a small way, a piece of art. Let's call it like that, okay? So think about what you can do, and consider all the tools, okay? You see, if you can see here, what math type has done has been to write it in LaTeX. I entered LaTeX into a Word document, okay? Now, if I now take you back to Mendeley and we ponder about what was happening in 1986, you can see the difference between this horror and what we can do now. And imagine if I made a mistake at that time, I had to write the whole thing over again. Whereas now we don't even think about that, okay? So it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be writing. I am very enthusiastic about writing, about communicating results. Remember that English is not my native language. I am Italian as a native speaker, so I had to struggle the same as you. And I hope that this hour and 15 minutes that we spent together provided a little bit of information to motivate you to investigate how you can communicate to us, the faculty, that the work that you have done, and in a way to show that you are able to organize a project independently and communicate all these different parts, okay? I've given you suggestions about how to start in order, and the order in which you start is the opposite. So you start from the references, you write your literature review, and probably you're going to carry on the entire work before touching the introduction, in which you provide us a broad view of the problem and what you did to solve it, okay, including the work done by others. The abstract is going to be your end. Tell us everything in 1 to 200 words. That is bad. It's a difficult thing to do, and it requires time. Sometimes it takes more time to write an abstract than to write the introduction. I want to motivate you a little bit. Appendices, by the way, is if there are mathematical typical data at the end, lengthy developments that would break the narrative may be put at the end in appendices. You will know when it's time for an appendix if you find yourself, shooting off a tangent, developing a particular mathematical tool or data analysis that takes you far afield from the main narrative of your paper. Then it's time to think about an appendix. Your supervisor will let you know if it's time to direct things to appendices. I want to tell you that this that you're doing is possibly going to be one of the most important things you're going to write, and you're going to put it in your resume. This is going to be what you will show for graduate school admission that you have written, for job applications. So it's very important that you put your soul into this, that you put your time into this. Don't think of final project as a homework assignment. It's not. There is your name on it, and it shows who you are and how you dealt with all these different issues. You are also doing this in a group, which may be actually harder. So you need to manage all these tasks, including the writing part, as a group. So I suggest you give some thought about how that can be done. And then you need to harmonize the different ways of writing and presenting into one document that will have probably several authors. And I wish you good luck on that. So I wish you the best on this semester. And the next one, you're writing at a very unusual time in history, when we are all in our homes late at night talking about how to write a research paper because we are not going to meet you in the classroom. Maybe this is how we are going to write when we are on Mars. Uh, it may be good preparation for that. I wish you the best. And if I can answer any questions about paper preparation and report writing and software tools to make life a little easier, feel free to contact me via email. And I'm going to actually, in order to allow that to happen, I'm going to put this back. My email is at the bottom. Feel free to contact me if there are any questions. Good luck again on writing your final project report, FENG 497, 498.